to good friends, the ones we hold dear, the ones who will tell us what we need to hear, the ones who love us, right or wrong, and to all those good friends that give you this song.
Well, hello, good friends, and welcome back to The Last Walk, Remember When, with your host, Ron Baumbach. And we're going back in time again to the fun time. So, get up off your easy chair, walk over to your fridge, reach way in the back and get that bottle of water. Add some Tang from the cupboard, stir it, make it so good and smooth and orange-like, just like my friends back in college liked it. Reach up into your cupboard. How about getting a chuckle? Remember that package of chuckles? I like the green ones myself, the little gel candies. Go back to your easy chair, turn on your lava lamp, close your eyes, get ready, it's storytelling time. The Last Walk is back.
Life is too short, we get only one turn. With luck we find beauty, but we sometimes get burned. But if you've had a true friend, or perhaps love, you've experienced the peace of heaven above.
Well, friends, we had such a great response to our show last week about TV theme songs from the 50s. I decided, why don't we keep moving ahead and let's do the 60s. So get ready. We're going to jump in and see and listen to, not see, but listen to the theme songs from some of your favorite shows from your youth, from the 1960s. I got to admit, I knew more of these than I did from the 50s. I guess because I laid in that hospital bed watching TV and the Mets way back when. So let's jump into the first one. Here we go. What was that show? You may recall there were two husbands. Darren came on one, and then another guy, Darren, came on later on. And Elizabeth Montgomery starred as the Wonderful Witch in Bewitched. How about this one? That's where we first got to see Don Knotts, I believe, and Opie on the Andy Griffith Show with Gomer Pyle and Goober and Aunt Bee and all those great people. Let's keep it going. Here's another.
Come and listen to my story about a man named Jed. A poor mountaineer barely kept his family fed. And then one day he was shooting at some food, and up through the ground come a bubbling crude oil, that is, black gold, Texas tea. Well, the first thing you know, old Jed's a millionaire. The kinfolk said, Jed, move away from there. Said, California is a...
Yeah, that was Buddy Epson, who I believe was once a prize fighter. Or maybe the guy who played the big, tall Jethro was once. Or was it his dad? Anyway, that was the Beverly Hillbillies. Who was your favorite character from the show? The pretty blonde, the grandmother, or the teacher who was the tough businesswoman back in the show? It was a great one, and we're going to keep this show going. How are you doing so far? You have them all right? Let's do another one.
They're creepy and they're kooky, mysterious and spooky. They're all together ooky, the Addams Family. Their house is a museum where people come to see them.
Well, that one's pretty simple. The title's in the theme, The Addams Family. I like the show, I think, a lot better than I did like the play. I seen the play a couple of times, but the show, I think, on Friday nights was really cool. Who was your favorite character in that one? Mine was a little guy, Cousin It, the guy that walked around with all the hair, I think he had, and the grandfather with the bald head. Well, we're keeping this show going. We're keeping rolling along with the theme songs from the 60s. Let's keep playing along, singing these songs. Here's another one.
Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the starship Enterprise. Its 5-year mission, to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no man has gone.
Now, are you still a Trekkie? Star Trek, the original series. I must admit I watched it sometimes. I wasn't really into the whole Star Trek scenario. Once in a while, we sat down with the family and watched it. But we did watch this one. We enjoyed it a great deal. Yes, I believe that was Dawn Addams and Barbara Feldon in Get Smart. 99? If I recall well, one of my older brothers had a crush on Barbara Feldon. I think I remember seeing her in some tiger outfit. She was a very sexy co-star to Maxwell Smart. Let's keep this ball rolling. We have another one going here. Do you recall this one coming up now? I think that was CBS's answer to the Addams Family, the Munsters. I was never that much of a fan of the Munsters. I know it was popular, had some, Fred Gwynn plays a cool role, but I was really more into the Get Smart world back then. But I did enjoy this show, and I think this show could really fit in during COVID-19. In fact, I wondered if this show did a series or did a show about life living in COVID-19 with all the masks on. What do you think? Would it fit in today?
There is a fifth dimension, beyond that which is known to man. It is a dimension as vast as space and as timeless as infinity. It is the middle ground between light and shadow, between science and superstition, and it lies between the pit of man's fears and the summit of his knowledge.
Of course, that's Twilight Zone. And I always get this name wrong. Rod Serling, I believe it is. But what a really wonderful show. He had another show on a while back then, but I don't recall that being that big of a hit. But Twilight Zone was stupendous. Now, when we didn't want to get freaked out, you like to get freaked out by this really pretty blonde who jumped out of a genie bottle. Do you recall this one from back in the 60s? Dream And Genie, starring Barbara Eden and Larry Hagman, who went on to even greater success in the 70s when we do that series in Dallas. She popped out of that bottle, popped anywhere. Didn't they get married later on towards the end of the show? And I recall, years later, while visiting my brother and sister-in-law down in Florida, seeing the house where they actually filmed I Dream A Genie. What a real thrill. And I was lucky enough to actually see the place where this show coming up was filmed.
Just sit right back and you'll hear a tale of a fateful trip that started from this tropic port aboard this tiny ship. The mate was a mighty sailing man, the skipper brave and sure. 5 5 passengers set sail that day for a 3-hour tour. A 3-hour tour.
Yes, that was Gilligans Island on Saturday evening. I think it was on Channel 2 in New York, CBS. I would call him Manny G. Krebs from Dobie Gillis, but it was Bob Denver and Tina Louise and a number of other stars. Mr. Magoo was in it. In my mind, he's Mr. Magoo, but his real name is Jim Backus. It was a great show. And while on a cruise, we took one of the excursions, and they took us to Gilligans Island, where they filmed it. It was really awesome, seeing there on the site where actually they were on their little ship. Now, as they keep this thing going, there was another show that was really one of our favorites, one of your favorites. Starred some comedians that are really cool, and this man's now in his 90s. He was a star of Mary Poppins. I'm sure you know the show once you hear the theme. If not, you'll think of his co-star, who was a darling to many and had her own show a couple years later. Of course, that's the Dick Van Dyke Show, starring Mary Tyler Moore. I recall Rosemary being very funny. And who was the other short guy? He was really quick-witted. Marty or something like that? And Carl Reiner, who just recently passed away. What a really classic, wonderful show. I recall the tall, bald guy with glasses, a producer or something on the show, who was also on Leave It to Beaver back in the 50s. And of course, if you were into the Westerns, you loved this one. What's his name?
Through rain and wind and weather, hell bent for leather, wishing my gal was by my side. All the things I'm missing, good vittles, love and kissing, are waiting at the end of my ride. Move 'em out, hit 'em up, hit 'em out, hit 'em up, rawhide.
Of course, that's Rawhide. Now, the next one coming up starred a beautiful woman who recently left us. She was also in The Crown. Remember the name of this show? Her and her co-star. What was the name of the show? Of course, Diana Rigg in The Avengers. What a classic TV show. Now, the next one coming up was a bunch of pretty girls, and I think their uncle or their father. And I think you'll know it once you hear the name, because the name's inside the theme song. Here we go.
Come ride the little train that is rolling down the tracks to the junction. Forget about your cares, it is time to relax at the junction. Lots of curves, you bet, and even more when you get to...
You know it as Petticoat Junction. Now, ironically enough, the one that follows this, we just had a bunch of girls and their dad, their uncle. Now we have a bunch of guys and their dad. I think it was on Sunday night. You all gathered around the show, and we loved the theme song. Here we go. Yes, you knew it, and I know it as Bonanza, Hoss Cartwright. And what was it, Dan Blocker played Hoss and Dad, and the fellow Michael Landon, I think, was in it. And Parnell, someone named Parnell, I believe, was he in Circus Boy? Anyway, there's been 15 so far. How many of those have you gotten right? Let's keep the show going. Let's keep the game moving. The next one was a good show. I really enjoyed this one. I love the opening. The opening was so cool. He had to destroy the evidence because it went away within 30 seconds upon hearing it. To recall this show, who was the star of it? Yes, of course, that was Mission Impossible. Mr. Phelps, wasn't that Peter Graves? And wasn't Martin Landau and his wife back then, Barbara Bain, in the show? And if I recall correctly, I believe Linda Nimoy replaced Martin Landau a couple of seasons later. I wonder if that was before or after Star Trek. I could be wrong, I am quite often, but I think I have that memory right. Let's keep this game going. The next one is one that you probably recall once you start hearing the song. It was one that was a favorite of mine. The sponsor was, I think, Chevrolet. It was on Thursday nights on ABC. And when my third son was born, the way I found out he was a boy, because the nurses, as they walked into the room, all hummed this theme song. What do you think it is? Yes, that's My Three Sons. Remember Bub, the grandfather? Then he passed away, William Frawley, obviously from I Love Lucy. He passed away, they brought on an uncle or grandpa or some other guy. And then his youngest son joined the team when Tim left. He went on one of the Hardy Boys. He was originally a Hardy Boy in the Mickey Mouse show. He left the show, Tim Considine, I think his name was. And they had the three sons. And ironically, the younger fellow was this brother of Chip. Now, the next show was a space adventure show. I wasn't that much into space adventure, but I really liked the young girl who came from Danny Thomas' show. I think it was Angela Cartwright, and she was in this show too. Do you remember the name of the show? It was pretty interesting back then. Yes, it was Lost in Space, another classic adventure of outer space. Now, the next one was one that I did not watch. I think it was in the afternoon. Yes, that was Dark Shadows. Not one of my favorites. Maybe it was one of yours. I think it was on in the afternoon. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm right. Who knows? But I was right about this one. This was one of my favorite ones. I love this little guy. A little older, an interesting man. I think it was on Sunday evenings. You'll know it once you hear the song. My Favorite Martian. What a classic, great, wonderful show. Starring Ray Walston, who was known in my mind for playing the devil in Damn Yankees, and also Bill Bixby. I think his wife's name was Pamela somebody other, his wife or his girlfriend, Pamela Britton, I think her name was. Anyway, we're keeping it going, keeping it moving, keeping the show, and getting these songs coming along. Can you guess this one?
Meet Kathy, who lives most everywhere, from Zanzibar to Berkeley Square. But Patty's only seen the sights a girl can see from Brooklyn Heights. What a crazy pair! But they're cousins, identical cousins all the way. One pair of
It's the Patty Duke Show, starring the one and the only Patty Duke, who played herself and played a cousin in the same show. You never know which was which, but she was really good. But I think she's mainly known for an amazing portrayal of Helen Keller in the Helen Keller story. The great late Patty Duke. As we keep this show going, let's do one more and see if you can guess. The Virginian, not one of my all-time favorites. I don't recall watching it too often. And the one following right now, I may have seen a couple of times, but I was not a steady watcher. Were you?
The man is a big man, and he fought for America to make all Americans free. What a boom, what a doer, what a dream come truer was he.
Daniel Boone Show. Did that star Fess Parker? I'm not sure. I recall Fess Parker in The Alamo, Davy Crockett. That was really good. Did you watch this one? That was The Wild Wild West. Another one I was not glued to the TV for. I was more into the Cowboys and Indians and the Western shows in the 50s, and I got out of that more into sitcoms in the 60s. And here's one about the war. These guys were classic. I'll tell you, it was not MASH. It was the other guy. Do you remember this show? You knew that as Hogan's Heroes, starring Bob Crane. The late, great Bob Crane, who was once a radio announcer, had his own radio TV show, The Bob Crane Show, and tragically was killed in a still unsolved murder mystery. I think back in the 70s, 78, 79, around there or something like that. Sad, but true. Now the next show was one that I enjoyed. About a rich couple, him and his beautiful blonde wife, who moved to the country, and they enjoyed a different lifestyle. I liked the guy who ran the gas station. Do you recall the name of the show and the people who were in it? Yes, of course, that was Green Acres, starring Ava Gabor, Jaja's sister, and Eddie Albert. And there were two other characters. One was an older guy who worked in a pharmacy or the drugstore or a local general store. And the other guy was like a general handyman, I think his role was. I liked the supporting cast of shows. Now this one coming up is an all-time favorite for many people. It was on Sunday evenings, early in the evening, and it included a talking horse.
A horse is a horse, of course, and no one can talk to a horse, of course. That is, of course, unless the horse is the famous Mr. Ed. Go right to the source and ask the horse. He'll give you the answer that you endorse. He's always on a steady course. Talk to Mr. Ed.
That's Mr. Ed, starring Alan Young as Wilbur. Wilbur? Now we're coming down almost towards the end of our journey. This was a show that was a spin-off from the Andy Griffith Show. Then later on, this fellow had his own TV show because he had a singing voice that was out of this world. Gomer Pyle, USMC, starring Jim Nabors, who went on to great fame as the Jim Nabors Show. That was probably in the 70s. Now, I think it was on Friday nights. My family would sit around and laugh and enjoy this one.
The end of the Civil War was near when quite accidentally a hero who sneezed abruptly ceased retreat and reversed it to victory. Medal of Honor pleased and thrilled his proud little family group, while pinning it on some blood was...
That was F-Troop, starring Larry Storch and Forrest Tucker, a classic TV show back in the 60s.
Oh, I've been so lucky and I've been so blessed. In spite of my failings, I've found success. For I've known love and I've known good times, and I have known friendship and written some rhymes.
You've been listening to The Last Walk, Remember When, with your host Ron Baumbach, and we've done a journey down memory lane to the 1960s, the famous TV shows that kept us awake, kept us inspired, and kept us inquired into life in the 60s. The theme songs. I'm indebted to YouTube and for the person who put up Guess the Theme Songs from the 60s. What a great site and a great entry into YouTube. I'm also very much impressed and thrilled to have Paul Cassone and the wonderful song Here's the Good Friends heard throughout our show. And I'm indebted to my good buddy Mike, my college roommate, who worked so hard from his studios in the great state of Tennessee to make our voice in our show sound so much better. The book, The Last Walk on Our Block, is available on Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com. It's in Nook, Kindle, and print versions. Until next time, have a great weekend. Remember when.
Here's to good friends, the ones we hold dear, the ones who will tell us what we need to hear, the ones who love us, right or wrong, and to all those good friends who give you this song, and to all those good friends who give you this song.